So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session, Virtual Empathy. In this webinar, we will have a scientific perspective and real-world examples and discussions about how the shift to virtual communication due to the pandemic impacted human relations and how we can still maintain a connection to other people, might it be family, friends, or clients, during these very, very challenging times. Our panel of experts for today will share their experience and tips of years working remotely and how they communicate with empathy in the digital world. As organizers from Connectmedica, we are no strangers to virtual communication. One of our core products, Hype Messages, is a behavioral design tool that uses video with a personal touch in the digital communication space. After 5 years implementing this tool with the biggest pharma companies, we also want to share what we have learned along the way, and we are eager to learn about all of your diversified experiences. I will be moderating this debate along with my colleagues from Connectmedica, Michal, Komorniczak, and Poreba. And joining us, we have an incredible group of people, which is my pleasure to introduce to you. So I will start with Priya Kapoor Hingorani. I'm so sorry. Priya is a vice president at JSK in India, and she's a renowned thought leader with more than 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and healthcare space. She has been the recipient of many reputable awards, such as the CMO Asia Marketing Award for the Marketing Professional of the Year. Priya is recognized as one of the key women professionals within the pharma industry. She actively empowers young upcoming women to find their place in business. We also have joining us Ibrahim Jalloul. Ibrahim is a senior brand manager at AstraZeneca based in Dubai. He has over 13 years of experience in pharmaceutical sales, market access, and marketing. He is a Syrian national who holds a bachelor's degree in pharmacy and master's degree in business. Ibrahim is passionate about implementing digital tools and a believer of the value that multi-channel solutions can bring to customers. We also have joining us Federico Fanti. Federico is the global head of operations at Pharma and has more than 10 years of experience in the pharma industry, and in particular in commercial excellence, with local and global experience. In the last 4 years, Federico has been working to support the transformation of customer engagement by implementing new platforms and focusing on digital engagement skills. Just last month, Federico was awarded the Viva Hero as a recognition for his outstanding work in driving commercial transformation. Congratulations. We also have joining us Sandra Bichl. Sandra is the founder of Career Angels, an HR and career consulting boutique that has been working online since 2013. Her remote team consists of more than 20 people across Europe, most of which have never met in person. I think we all can relate to that these days. Yet, they all play the integrated team that works smoothly. Welcome, and thank you for accepting our invitation to participate in this discussion. For those of you just joining us, welcome to the Virtual Empathy webinar. I will remind the audience again that we will take some questions that we will answer at the end of our discussion, so you can put them in the chat. And I will start with you, Sandra, because you've been working with a team that has been working remotely for so long. So how do you build empathy in this kind of virtual work environment?
The short answer is with a lot of effort. The long answer is a bit longer. Before going virtual, we were all in an office, and in an office, things happen. Things happen effortlessly. You overhear a conversation, you hear somebody laugh, you see somebody smile, you see everybody around you. And when we took Career Angels into the digital world in 2013, we said, okay, now we're online, and we had to figure out how to build a team when you don't even know the people, and we still want everybody to feel like part of a team. And one part about it is empathy, and I do appreciate that you didn't surprise me with the question. I had a couple of days to think about it. Here, I think the key word is to put intention into wanting to create empathy. So you need to, with intention and with effort, create the space that usually happens naturally and effortlessly. So you need to, as a team member, I don't even want to say as a leader or a manager, but as a team member, if you want to create empathy virtually, you need to have the intention behind it and create the space behind it. To say, I will ask a question, I will listen with the intent to listen and not with the intent to answer. So this is a slightly longer version of the short version with effort. So effort and intention to create those moments that usually happen, that usually just happen.
Great, wonderful. It makes so much sense.
And here I would have a question to the panel. If you could share some of your experiences on that topic, and perhaps starting Ibrahim, starting with you, if that's okay.
Thank you, Sandra, for the thoughts. I couldn't agree more. I guess we all practice it some way or another, but now it's with intention, as you said. So one of the things that honestly from experience I found to be useful is that we need to reestablish those communications at a human level, right? So setting up 5 minutes calls with team members, with colleagues, with the subject that is not about a task or a project, is just just to communicate with them, just to connect with them, maybe asking them about their families, trying to be there to support them, ask for their advice in something. Just again to reestablish that trust. And I think especially when we're talking about like team members, it's important to maintain transparency in those calls, right? Because more times than less, this seeps into work and talk and about work, and being transparent will directly reflect on them, alleviating their uncertainty and them feeling in the loop. And I think that's a great way to build empathy with someone, right? And I think the key word here is consistency. I mean, this has to become a habit. This cannot be a one-time thing. And I think this can really build trust between you and someone, whether a team member or a colleague.
Anyone else who would like to share your experience?
Yeah, I can simply echo what Sandra and Ibrahim are saying. I mean, I basically working in the global role, and both with my colleagues in the team, but also with my stakeholders in the company. We always work remotely, so we have to build the trust. And as also Ibrahim said, I mean, it's important to care about people. So we are not just worker, but we are also human being. We have to continue to care about the interests of people and what are the problems, eventually personal one, in order to be sure that we know each other. It's not just a work relationship, but I think I'm Italian, so I need also to talk a lot with people and to have the direct contact with people. But unfortunately, it's not possible anymore, at least for now. So we have to overcome this barrier, and maybe using also additional channel that we not used to use, like sending an SMS or simply asking how are you. It's something that helps a lot in building the trust and continue the relationship with team members, but also with all stakeholders in the organization that sit everywhere in the world. And continue delivering the same high quality of services and support that you can deliver also face-to-face. That's what helps to build the trust in what you are doing, and that you are committed to continue to support them being in the global function. That's also important, that you support them with the business despite the situation that we are living, both locally, globally, everywhere based.
Thank you, Federico. Could not agree more.
I can add to what he said, but I maybe have 5 points to express. I think firstly, I would agree with what Sandra and Anna were speaking earlier. But if you look at communication in any form, or you're building, empathy in a virtual environment, most of the exchange that we have is in the ratio of 7:38 to 55. I think many of us would have heard of it. Only 7% is the word, 38% is the tonality, and 55% is the non-verbal cues that you throw out, right? Now, in a virtual environment, that makes that's really impossible. And therefore, to pick up that 93%, you're throwing out the window, and you're looking at only the 7%. So I think a lot of people use emoticons to express how they are feeling at the end of any communication. But from building empathy in the virtual environment, I think 3 or 4 things that work for us very beautifully. One is at least in India, we are very flexible with the working hours. So you understand that people may want certain time off when they're in a virtual environment. The second is also ensuring that you have daily check-ins. And when you're having check-ins, you're asking very thoughtful questions. And some of the things that we have made changes on is, how are you feeling today? How's the family? What's happening? Something new that's taken place, which instantly starts a conversation which is beyond the normal that you're doing, which is work-related conversation. The third is, I think, encouraging virtual house tours, because I have realized that people who are working, whether it's team or other members, they may not have a dedicated area for work, and their spouses may be working, there are children running around there. So it's okay to have that noise around, because you are intruding into their space and not the other way around. And fourth important thing is that you allow space for vulnerability. You explain what's happening with you. You are like, we were just talking that we are living at work. So what do we do when, things are extending to hours? And like Ibrahim mentioned earlier, I think accept that empathy doesn't happen overnight. So it's a process that you need to keep consistently going through. And even if you have had one bad experience, it doesn't define the overall semantics. So that's my take on this.
Thank you. It's an excellent point. Thanks for sharing. I do have a follow-up question related to it, but with a slightly different twist. How do you keep the teams motivated as a virtual team leader? And I know, Priya, you touched on a lot of the points, but if I could direct that question to Federico.
Yeah, I mean, setting regular touch point with the team, even one-to-one and together team meeting, it's always important to share what all the team members are focusing on and see how we can support each other, even remotely. That's important to keep the spirit of the team. And I mean, I also agree with Ibrahim that the meeting that we should have is not only about work. You should have also like 15 minutes where you take a virtual coffee together and you talk about your potential vacation or what's your plan for the summer and Christmas, hopefully, and see what is going on with your family. So share also some personal insight that, of course, will help you to be connected and also engage. Then, of course, we are always working, so we have to focus on some goals that we have. So it's important that we keep the focus on what we have to do, of course, to support our company and our business. And that's something that you have to also remind or focus with the team and see if you are aligned and you are working in the same direction. That, of course, you cannot have a brief chat at the office. So you have to do in different ways, like a chat in Teams or an SMS or a quick video call. But you have to find different ways to communicate. And I think in this environment, we are also leveraging all the technology that we have. So all the channels that are available to communicate with people, with the team members, with internal, external stakeholders. So it's not just about Teams, the meeting in Zoom, Teams, or GoToWebinar, what the platform we use, but also the other channel that we have. Because, I mean, we need to expand the communication and we need to use and leverage all the infrastructure, digital infrastructure that we have.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. I will follow up this question also to Priya, because and I would pick up something that you said before, which the virtual house tours. I think that's just amazing, and it's right. It's great. It's the first time hearing about it. I also have for sure the cultural environment where we all are, which is completely different, right? I'm Portuguese from the south. I live in Poland, so that's a different way of doing business, talking to people, right? So this aspect also, when you come to how you manage your own teams and how you motivate them, I'm sure that that's also essential. So I will follow up with you, Priya, and I would love to listen to what you have to say.
Absolutely. So I think in addition to what I just spoke, managing teams gets even more a little more complex because you're used to working with them in a particular environment, and then you're changing the modality to now doing it virtually. So I'll quote an HBR article here, and which spoke very recently about 3 elements that could keep the team driven. One is play, the second is purpose, and the third is potential. I think people stay on, and when you're showing empathy in teams in the virtual environment, these 3 also remain equally important. Because in a virtual environment, there's no chance to show the play, no chance to show how well they have done. The purpose gets missing because you are not there to receive client feedback right online, or directly. And the potential, again, teaching and growing opportunities are lost. So the employee engagement sort of goes a little missing. So when you are doing this with teams, I think one of the important things we follow up is let's get connected. Let's get communicating with each other. Let's start talking about what's happening. I also, very contrarian to the view, encourage people to have conflicts if they are having, because which you would have in a normal situation. So it's okay. Let's vent out to each other, because it's venting to each other is better than venting it out on the family at home. So better ventilate or vent out your feelings to people here. And at the same time, also look at how easily you can forgive and forget. And therefore, all of us are on video calls, and we are looking at each other. You can see facial expressions, you can see what's happening, or even if it's a digital method of communication within the teams, we try to build all that. And this is adding to all that we've spoken on right now. But essentially, I think also very important is being thoughtful about where the person is coming from, and that's where the empathy is coming. It's very difficult at times to understand. A lot of it is assumption. So we consciously try to keep the assumption out of the equation and try to look at what is possible that could be driving some behaviors. And you'll be surprised in the number of time people have had meltdowns during this period because they are of the hours they're keeping or the kind of work that's happening. But it's all okay. It's a safe ground. You can all talk to each other, and like I said, vent it out on each other so you can have a good, and it's led to a better bonding. That's what I would say. People are now talking to each other, probably bonding better than what they would have bonded if they were just in a physical environment, surprisingly so.
Great. I don't know if anyone else, anything else to add?
I think just building on what Priya just said, I guess there is the element that we're missing from face-to-face is that the small things that we used to do, including venting out to each other, right? So I guess what I would add is just like if you're managing people, or if you're indirectly even in a cross-functional team, like if you make yourself available for those people, for the people around you. I mean, to feel supported is to be motivated, and I think this go a long way in keeping the team motivated. One learning again, probably from the past period, is that we used to celebrate birthdays in the office, so now we do it virtually. Everybody connects, with a camera. We have those social events, we have those touch points with each other, and like even if it's virtually, just like open the camera, let's sing happy birthday, and that's a nice gathering of the team. It reminds the team that they are part of a unit, and they are an important part of this unit. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. And I do see there is a question coming from the audience, which I will share, and we do encourage you to keep on submitting those questions. The question says, how computer mediated communication compares to face-to-face interactions? What kind of tools have helped you improve this kind of computer mediated communication? And Ibrahim, if I could start with you, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. I think the gap that exists between digital communication or computer mediated communication, as you call it, and face-to-face, well, some part of it is technology related, like limitations in the technology that we use, and part of it is also our limitation that we didn't utilize technology to the extent that can be used, right? So if we are to have a meeting, I think one of the things that we can do is just we can reach out for the camera button and just have this discussion, because a lot of people, when you ask them about the digital life right now, they complain about two things. There isn't much, natural or spontaneous communication between team members or between colleagues. And the other thing is that there isn't the facial cues, which Priya just spoke about, right? There isn't the body language, the face. You see someone smiling, or it's agitated. Like you can read so much about this, and you can have empathy with people from that visualization. So I guess to bridge that gap, one of the things is that make sure your camera is open, and ask people to open it as well. And maybe instead of sending a couple of lines on email, just have a 2 minutes call with someone. I think that goes a long way in bridging that gap, which right now there's nothing we can do about it unless we can just utilize technology to the best of our abilities. So the other thing is, yes, there are no longer running into someone in the hall and just starting a conversation. So maybe you can, it was a passive effort, right? You didn't really plan to do that. Maybe now we have to live with the fact that now we have to plan these. We have to plan these interactions, and we have to seek them. And I guess for when we're talking about tools, I think in pharma we went through a journey, right? So we were just thrown into this situation where suddenly we can no longer, meet our customers face to face, our colleagues face to face, and we went into like mitigation of the situation where suddenly you had like 100 webinars that were, it starts at 5 and ends at 6, and if you missed it, you missed it, and that's it. And the speaker is pre-recorded; he just talks, and there's no way for you to interact with them. And I think that started from a place of not thinking about empathy, but more that we want to deliver something. Like I want the team to meet because I need something delivered. I want to meet my customer because there's a message that I need to deliver to them, right? But then little by little, I think empathy started to work its way around us, and we started thinking about other tools. Technology allows that we can use. So we started with questions and answers, live questions and answers, maybe real-time feedback, maybe feedback even before the meeting. So submitting questions, having the audience and the speaker live. So we started to utilize technology more, so to understand, what do they need, not just what we want. And I think that's the value of the tools that we have right now. So we've always had this, but now we're learning to use it in a better context, I would say. For me, of course, like we've used so many tools. Like we have Federico is like, now I've heard you saying that he was like the Viva channel, and Viva is a great tool, right? We have the team from Connectmedica, and they have their own great set of tools again to create that programs out of need, not out of what we want. I guess that's the way I see it. The more that we utilize technology better, the narrower the gap between digital communication and face-to-face communication gets.
Thank you, Ibrahim. That's so insightful. Anyone else would like to add any comments?
I would like to hear from Sandra, because we've been in these webinars, we in pharma, for so long, and this whole pandemic business that we've been upon right now has pushed us and drives us to go into solutions that we didn't saw before, but they existed. The other lines of business were already using communication tools that we are now forced to use. And since Sandra has she's been dealing with an online business basically since 2013, I would love to hear from you also, and from a perspective of someone that it's not 100% pharma. I think that's also very good for all of us.
There are a couple of things. My screen didn't froze. I was just thinking about where to start. There are a couple of things, because I think there is a difference between the question, how do you motivate a team that used to work offline and now is online, versus how do you motivate a team that by design is supposed to work online anyway and wants to work online. Mm-hmm. So there is this difference. That's important. Having said that, the solutions are very similar. Career Angels went from offline to online 7.5 years ago, before it was a thing. And a lot of we had resistance within the team and from the market saying, if you do that, people will quit. If you do that, you'll lose your clients. I had a conversation a month ago with somebody from the service industry, recruitment services, And he said, Sandra, but you can't build relationships with people online. And I said, well, if that were true, I wouldn't have a company. I have not met over 90% of my clients. I have not met 75% of my team ever in person, and yet it works. And the thing, and I know I'll repeat myself, is the effort, because it takes effort and some learning to not only see the words, as Priya said, but to focus on micro expressions and to start learning, become like a profiler. So normally you would see like the whole thing and the smell and the touch and everything. But now with one glance at the screen, when I see one of my teammates, I'm like, something's going on. And I don't need to see the whole body and don't need to touch them, smell them, etc. Because I become, well, maybe like a profiler, because I can read those micro expressions and something, but it takes effort and it takes the intention of wanting to learn that. When it comes to motivating teams that work online, what has helped us to make sure that everybody's on the same page, we do monthly check-ins, so we don't do annual performance reviews, we do monthly reviews, and everybody receives feedback at least once or twice a week on whether, so we catch people, and usually it's about catching people doing something right. So positive feedback. And what I want to say with it, so in this virtual environment, it takes a different design of processes, a different design of communication, and it's about the attitude and the intention behind it to make sure it works. And I think it's important also to mention a group that I think especially online might be overlooked easily, because if you ask somebody, how are you doing, and you have an extrovert on the other end, you'll get along, oh, this is happening, da 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 da. Or an Italian, doesn't have to be an extrovert. But if you work with introverts that are online and you are more on the extrovert side, it's very easy to miss the cues, or to, if they're not as fast as you are, to give them the space and give them the extra 1 or 2 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes to open up. And that does not happen naturally. It takes effort and creating the right environment, the right space, the right communication tools, so that everybody can express themselves. So yeah.
Sandra, if I may, just a quick follow-up question. What are some of those cues that we should look for?
I think it depends on a person. So what means, so if you talk to somebody, and normally in an office you kind of pick up subconsciously on stuff. Yeah. So here it's really, when talking to a team member, to start really observing them with intention. Say, okay, if that person slows down, that means something's up. Because it's not, I mean, of course, if somebody smiles and we know they're happy, but then there are fake smiles and tired smiles. And so I think it's about person-specific cues to really observe the team members when you talk to them, really see what's going on, and kind of observe with intention to finding out, okay, who are they, what do they react to, etc. I think this is one of the things I'm definitely got really good at over the last 5-6 years, to pick up on those mini cues, and those are different for everybody.
Yeah.
That's yes, I couldn't agree more. I think we all had, especially in Pharma, because we were, it's a face-to-face environment at all levels, not just on sales, but internally, of course. And most of us, for sure, we thought it was the end of the world. This cannot be done. And we just forgot that there's so many people working this way for so long. So Sandra, you know,
Pedro,
that's
we were
wonderful.
the first and for long the only company in the HR space that would do things digitally. Because if you ask an HR advisory firm or a boutique, they would say, of course it has to be in person. Thing is, it doesn't have to. It's just different.
Of course. Well, the tools are there. You're using it wisely. We have thousands of people that use it. we have phenomenons of people online. Come on, the kids on YouTube that have millions of followers. You need to have empathy to create this kind of following and engagement with people, right? Engagement is a very big word in our days, and it started being a big word in our days. So thank you so much for your insight. I'm sure we're learning a lot. I would love to be having this conversation, by the way, in a restaurant in Lisbon. It would be amazing. I really miss face to face. But we all have to learn it. You know, although we're selling communication tools, but we lived out of face-to-face interaction, and I couldn't agree more. I've been in sales for years and years, and what we picked up when we got into a room and we read the room and we read the person and we immediately understood how we have to behave, how we have to talk. To translate this to this small square, it has been challenging, but it's not impossible. And I appreciate so much all the expertise that you've been sharing with us. So I would change a little bit of pace right now, because I think we've been focusing very much in internal communication, how we communicate with tools. And I have a question for Priya, is how we can help to persuade and convince, and how can we design empathy virtually, and more for the outside, right? More for our clients, because, you know, interactions with doctors, which is what we live from. How can we achieve that virtually?
Absolutely. So thanks for that question. And I think for me, empathy basically means that you are listening through another person's ears. You're seeing through the other person's eyes, and you're feeling through the other person's heart, right? If you have done all these three, whether it's a customer, whether it's your team, or whether it's your family, I think it all sort of gels together. Also, from a consumer point, I think persuasion for us naturally comes through logic. Most of us, when we are trained in school or business schools, we look at, you know, writing logically, we look at putting things down logically with facts. But the irony of everything is that facts are not emotions, and emotions is what drives decisions. So you can't meet emotion with facts, you have to meet emotion with emotion. And if you have to meet emotion with emotion, you have to look at how you can persuade a person. But for that, you need to understand, or let's say if you're looking at a customer, and I would like to quote a very famous matrix that's used now, that if you look at 3 parameters, okay, and you look at a think and a believe that a person is doing or a customer is doing, feel, and what is the action or the do. And you see that from today, where are they and where do you want them to move? And then you start looking at what are the whys of the behavior, what is the underlying reason for that kind of behavior. You start seeing a lot of things that are going to come in. So whether it is immersion with customers, what all of us know as insights, right? Or whether you look at things which is where is the customer's pain point coming from? And I like to quote an example here, one positive and one what happens when you don't do it right. So if you look at, I think, a pleasant, very, very pleasant experience with Amex. If you call the credit card team of Amex, and if you have done that, you will find that they are willing to understand, hold on, take the time. You could be irritated on the other end. They're trying to still understand and give you customer service. And, you know, explain to you how things are working and how things need to be taken care of. Which is brilliant, because you feel thrilled at the end of that interaction, and you're feeling that, okay, this person is going to take care of me. And generally they will follow up to see if there's an outcome done. And that's brilliant customer service, because if you have better customer service, then nearly 84% of your customers are going to stick with you, because they believe customer service is as good as equal or equally important as the product. And if you look at many times, there are other examples where people are not so well equipped. And many of us have had these examples where you're either in an airline or even with credit card companies. They promise something, the person is continuously only repeating what they know, or which what they've been trained for, irrespective of what your answer is. Sometimes I feel I'm speaking to an IVR machine, which is going to tell me to go to option 1 or 2 or 3. even though there is a human at the other end of the chain. And that clearly shows you where empathy is lacking. Now, if I was to bring it back to the pharma context and tell you that when you are persuading a customer, like when we started in COVID, all of us went, like Ibrahim was saying, we went overboard with webinars, we went overboard with whatever we wanted, whatever mechanisms we had to reach out to the customer, because nobody knew better. We were trying to get to that point. And then we realized that what we are doing is actually pushing away the customer. You started getting a lot of backlash for what was happening, and people started tuning off. So we said, okay, if that's not going to work, and if you are going to look at what you need to achieve, then when you have to persuade the customer towards your end, you need to stop using all these tools of reaching out to them and probably look at their persona as n is equal to 1 and see what are their behaviors and attitudes. How can you fine tune what you want to reach to them, and how can you make that delivery of that item more compatible and more comfortable to the customer. And I'm very happy to share with you, the minute this was done, we are just sort of beginning to implement it. Our rates of engagement really shot up. Customers started responding better. They started being more open to our teams. Of course, it meant a lot of training and reskilling and upskilling of people, but it's worked beautifully. So if we are persuading, I think in any argument, emotions work far more beautifully than logic. And that's where I think empathy plays a role, and I've seen it live happening in different situations in life.
So interesting. Thank you so much. I don't think that if we start sending invitations for webinar to our friends and family, we will soon lose them very quickly as well. So yeah, I totally agree with you. We have to treat customers, in the right way. Federico and Ibrahim, may I have your thoughts also on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's important that now we don't bombard our customer with many mails or scheduling meetings at every time and during the day, because they are also still working in the daily practice with patients. So we need to give them time to manage everything. And what I saw by, monitoring the adoption of these platforms, of course, it's not something that happened overnight. It's a journey that we have to work with our sales force, with our colleagues, in order to bring this kind of new way of working also on the other side, on the HCP's side, in order for them to be ready to interact with the pharma industry in a different way, and combination of channels, of course. But I see that, for instance, the call duration is long compared to the face-to-face. I see an average of 25, 30 minutes that the rep can spend with an HCPs in many countries where, for instance, usually they have a 5-minute call. So, when you schedule the call, when you do the right things and you are aligned with the needs of your customer, you can really engage them and they give you the time that you need to explain what you want to explain to them, because you are bringing values to them. And it's something that they appreciate. If this new way of working will be embedded very well in the daily practice that our physicians are doing, so scheduling the meeting when they have time, scheduling the meeting based on the information that they want to receive from you, for sure they are willing to open the door and have a meeting with you and spend a lot of time with you. Half an hour for a sales rep with a doctor in the South European country, it's really a lot. And we see this statistic, and we are really impressed by these statistics. And also Viva shared with us what is going on in the industry in general. And that's perfectly aligned with the industry benchmark. So that's something that also the doctor are open to, and they are willing to start this kind of relationship with the pharma industry. But we need to educate both the reps, of course, on how to use the technology, the doctor on how to log into a meeting, because we are usually using this kind of technology, but of course it's not always the same for the doctor. There are some barriers as well, technology barriers in the hospital or something like that. So we need to also, train our rep train the doctor to use the technology, to be like the first point of contact for the doctor when it comes to IT support in some cases. And then we have to provide them some additional skills to support the remote engagement. As we are discussing today, it's important to provide, ask them personal question, for instance, to show up on the camera in the right way, of course, because you are still in the work environment. Maybe the background should be set in the right way. So there are some small advice that can help to communicate still in professional way, even if you are working from home, even if you are working in a different environment.
Totally agree. And we have all seen the research, right? Like 30% of the doctors are willing to keep up this even after the pandemic is over, right? So this is a big challenge for all of us, right? So the teachings that we're getting from all of this situation, it's not that we will lose these tools in the future. It's that they will be part of it, right? Even from the Salesforce perspective, right? The sales rep, and I started as a sales rep many years ago, many more than I would like to say, but even the sales rep have to move into a different mind space, right? Because they are truly communicators. And the important thing is that we see it is that we are not going to lose this personal connection. This is extremely essential. It's not like we're going to lose all of the sales force, because they're essential for this, right? Just my 5 cents. Not really.
No, they try the communication anyway. From my point of view, it's just a different channel that they can use, exactly. But to support what they are doing every day and still to keep the communication with the physician. So instead of having 10, I don't know how many face-to-face meetings per day, maybe they have to define the right balance. And our job is exactly to support them on defining what is the right balance here, and what is the right channel that they can use, what is the right message that they can send to the doctor, to the right profile of the doctor. So they have to do that, but they need some support from us to understand how to implement this new way of working on the field every day. And that's our task.
Absolutely. I would also like to remind our audience that we are taking in questions if you want to write anything. If we will not have the time to answer it, we will be coming back to you one by one and answering the questions as best as possible. I think Michael has a question.
Yes, Pedro, there is a question coming from the audience. What are some of the key learnings and positive experiences from virtual world experience in 2020? So some of the things that we have learned as Connectmedica is certainly things you've already highlighted. Communication with physicians based on the relationship. This is more of a question geared towards the audience. Imagine receiving a message from me a month ago. Would you engage with that message? And the answer is probably not necessarily. Imagine receiving a message from someone you know, especially these days, as you pointed out, physicians are overwhelmed with the number of messages that they receive. That proper context. Physicians need to understand why they're receiving the message. What is the context? Why that message is sent to them, and finally that perception of the message, the quality of content being shared, especially these days with the numerous communication messages, emails, online meeting requests that they're receiving. The quality of communication plays such an important role. Last thing is certainly the channel. We do see that as you pointed out, lots of emails going out, lots of online meeting requests. If we can deliver a message through a channel which is uncluttered, imagine sending a video message based on relationship from representative or MSL, and delivering that via uncluttered communication channels such as SMS. We are seeing it is certainly delivering the results. So those are some of the elements that I'd like to highlight from Connectmedica's perspective. But maybe turning that question to the audience again, what are some of the key learnings and positive experiences from virtual world experience in 2020?
I guess there's no positive experience.
I think, yeah, please.
I can't answer for 2020 specifically, because for us it's a reality. It's nothing new. However, because of 2020, we've started hanging out as a team, which normally we wouldn't do. And we called those meetings internally meet and drink a little. And everybody comes with their beverage of their choice, 50% with alcohol, 50% without alcohol. And we simply meet and drink a little. And this is something we didn't think of before because it wasn't really necessary.
Sure.
Because it wasn't a, I don't want to call it crisis mode, but unusual times. But now we needed it, so we found a way. And well, one of the positive things is there's always a way, and you just need to figure out what works for you, for your team. Yeah, so we started drinking together. That's a positive thing into that.
I think also we have sorry, Ibrahim, you want to go ahead?
No. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
I think also the fact that many of the things we thought were not possible earlier, a lot of things that we held as a barrier, saying, well, this can't be done because it has to be done face to face. You suddenly realized in the past 8 months, everything can be done in a virtual world. And that's led, I think, especially the healthcare industry to accelerate its thinking towards digitalization, and also looking at how virtual environments are going to get more and more prevalent. So I think that's a huge positive, because people have suddenly started accelerating and looking at how you can adopt technology. The CIOs are all in demand, and so are our digital and comics friends. So it's great to see that happening. The other thing I think is we are making an effort to connect with one another as human beings, and genuine effort, because everybody is feeling isolated in their own place. So they want to come out together and they want to see what is happening. So like Sandra said, drink a little, maybe even eat a little, Sandra. We share meals on the calls as well, show them what's cooked today at home. So I think it's fun. It's led to a lot of bonding, and it's also made us look at absolutely new avenues that we have not looked before.
I think building on what you said, Priya, and it's just that we honestly were under the assumption that the market isn't ready to go digital. Our physicians were not ready to go digital, and we worked with that assumption, right? And suddenly it appears that everybody is actually ready, and the positive that we can take is so for me, honestly, there are many to consider. There is now, we're never going back to just face-to-face. Like we know now those channels, and we are going to utilize them in the future, whether the pandemic or not. So I think it will be eventually a healthy blend of both face-to-face and those new channels that we discovered that work. And one of the things I think, and you touched on this, and this is, I think, is greatly important, is that sometimes you need to take a step back and think, this is not working. Maybe I need to rethink what I've been doing, and we've done that. And it takes those brave moments to make sure that you're still connected with your physician, and that again, it comes from a place of empathy. You don't want to be a burden, you want to be of help. You want to understand where they're coming from and try to help them as much as possible. So I think, yeah, despite everything that happened in 2020, there are some positives to take away. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. I mean, this pandemic simply accelerated the digital transformation of the industry and helped us a lot in our work to convince people that digital can be really work in the pharma industry. So unfortunately, that the pandemic happened to convince people, but that's how it is now. And for sure, we have to figure out how now we have to combine the different channels together and how we should balance the face-to-face interaction and the digital interaction. But now we realize that this is possible. And another benefit that I saw in this year maybe is the work-life balance, because now we don't have to travel a lot. We have the possibility to stay in the place where we want to stay. We have the flexibility to work from everywhere, basically. So I think we earn a lot in this regard with the work-life balance, even if sometimes we work more because you don't have any restriction in terms of time, working time, but at least you can manage your work in a better way from my point of view. And you have really the freedom now to decide how to manage your life, what time you wanted to dedicate to travels instead stay at home, and how you want to manage your daily activities.
Thank you. There's a lot of positives. I just think we don't need another pandemic to learn more for the future.
That's enough. That's enough.
I'm done. Honestly, I think everybody is. I think we have some questions from the audience. Anya,
yes, exactly. Thank you, dear audience, for all your questions. We promise to get back to all of them. There is one question. They would like to know how our panelists define empathy for themselves. Perhaps all of you could share your take on your definition, your personal definition of empathy. Sandra, would you like to give us a try?
No. I mean, yes. Empathy for me is making an effort to understand the other person, to put yourself into the shoes of somebody else, to try to understand them on an emotional level. Having said that, coincidentally, Forbes published an article mentioning an virtual empathy study a couple of two days ago, where they quoted something very important, that showing empathy shouldn't be an excuse for poor performance. So in a sense, yes, I show empathy, which doesn't give permission or approves poor performance, which I think was very important, a very important point from that study. So empathy is not about weakness or approving of something, it's understanding and, yeah, connecting. That's for me empathy.
Thank you, Sandra. I completely agree. It's not feeling for someone, it's really feeling with someone that really makes the difference. Could we hear from the other panelists? Who wants to share your definition next?
I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. It's, seeing with the other's eyes, listening with the other's ears, and feeling with the other's heart. But to borrow from what Sandra said, I think it's also about walking not only in their shoes, but walking a mile in their shoes to understand where it pinches and what happens. Right. And I have also read the study that Sandra quoted right now, and it's very pertinent. I think it talks about the fact that if you're lowering your standards, then you're showing sympathy, not empathy, right? It's in that term. So if you are showing empathy, you're going to tell the person, okay, I understand where you are coming from, but can you come and let's then work together to get to the standard that the whole team is, and look at that agility that's required. So I think empathy is, for me, is critical for business success, for individual relationship success, and for being a great leader. If you have to do that, then you have to show empathy. There is no other way.
Thank you, Priya.
I think what was said is pretty much covered it. Just from personal experience, I feel that if I not just observe, but also appreciate the other person, where they are coming from, why they feeling the way they feeling, and then use that as a starting point to if he's a team member, I want him to be. So if I want to direct them towards something, I need to understand where they're starting from and why they are where they are. And honestly, this is not something that you can fake. You either invest or you will not be successful, right? Either if you invest, it shows, you communicate, you connect to that person, and you actually can make a difference. Other than this, and this applies, internally or externally. So again, for our physicians, we didn't understand what they're going through, especially now. How can you help them? How can you be a tool of support, not just another burden, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's about building trust and connection with people. So even if you work remotely, try to have an openness conversation with your stakeholder and try to understand their needs. So if they are busy as a team member, that they are open to share with you, even if you cannot meet their concern or their issues, in order for you to be able to help them. If it's about a doctor, understand what are their needs and to be completely open with you and try to build this trust. Because when you work remotely and with a camera, you can maybe share some signal that you don't want to share, and maybe the other people understand something different. So you need to be very careful in your communication and try to build this trust between you and the other person on the other side of the camera.
And can I add one more point?
Yes.
I think one very critical thing within empathy is active listening and active and engaged listening. And that's what I think defines, a lot of what we are saying as an underlying factor to arrive at the conclusion.
That's true.
I couldn't agree more. We are very close to the end of this session. I cannot say enough of how much of a pleasure it was to have you all present and to share all of this experience. I would be gladly going into the dessert and coffee part of this wonderful dinner if we were live, and I hope that we can do it very soon. But once again,
for sure.
Thank you so much for your time. It has been incredibly insightful. I've learned so much today, and I wish that we can keep going, but unfortunately our time is almost over. To everybody else watching, we will get back to you, all the questions that you've made. And once again, thank you so much, and everybody stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.